And if I just finish laughing at, a hilarious clip of a comedian and they're telling me where I can find more of their stuff and get it at a special rate, then I'm most likely going to do that.
Yeah.
And if I consistently see their content is driving me to do something like that, then I'm going to most likely take action on it eventually, even if I didn't do it at that moment.
Greetings, everyone. Come on in and have a seat up front for the Funny Muscle Podcast. If you're here, then you're looking to learn how to create laughs like a pro. So please help me welcome to the stage your co-host to help you do that, economics professor and open micer Chris Stifler and comedian turned author Mike Lucas.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Uribe, there he is.
Yo, what's up, guys?
This is something, Chris, that you and I have been talking about a long time via our comedy lens. We really talk about the importance of new comedians figuring out who they are to the world and who they are to themselves, really, so that they're more relatable, memorable, shareable, and funnier, frankly, and more original. And that's the comedy lens, which is another way of us saying their brand. And so this next guy reached out to me, and he specializes in this world of comedy branding. And I immediately jumped on the opportunity to have him on the show because I thought he could give us some great advice on finding our own comedy brand and the importance of it and how we can utilize that in our the business of stand-up comedy. So please welcome to the show, David Uribe.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's all the applause break. Well, we always tell people that we'll edit that in later, but we never do. But it sometimes feels better. Well, nice to have you, David. Good to meet you. Thanks for reaching out, and we're excited to talk to you. Do us a favor, first of all, and introduce yourself and give us basically your branding elevator pitch. Why is it so important for a comedian to understand and embrace their brand?
Yeah, so my name's David Uribe. I've been a brand designer and marketer for the past 20 years. In that time, I've also done stand-up and improv, so I just have a special place for comedians and funny businesses in general. And there's what I see in this comedy space is a big opportunity for comedians to stand out, not just with their sense of humor and with their jokes, but really having a brand that uniquely positions them to get more gigs, to grow their fan base, and to monetize beyond the microphone. So that's what I'm all about at Uribe Creative, which is my branding agency focused on comedians and funny business owners.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Comedically, when you're writing comedy, it's so easy to get lost in the external and not bring it back internally. And the comedy lens that I teach in my books really focuses you back on who you are and what you bring to the table. And it seems like we're really in alignment with that. What do you think are the key elements of a strong comedian brand? What can we bring to the table that help identify us as original?
Yeah, I think there are at least 5 main components of what can help somebody really stand out as a comedian. And I've actually put together what I call the comedy branding blueprint to help any comedian kind of figure this out. And the first one is having a visual strategy, right? It's having something that's going to visually represent the type of humor that you have, whether you're a prop comic, maybe you're just, a smart intellectual comic, maybe you're slapstick. When people think of you, you want to be able to position yourself in a way in their brains, not just for a particular punchline or joke, but a very intentional brand visual strategy, right?
That's perfect. Mine is I'm a fun bunch of guys. My comedy is multi-personality. I bring a lot of things alive. I do a lot of anthropomorphizing. So my first name of my first CD was a fun bunch of guys, and I feel like that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the thing that stands out immediately as an opportunity is really just even photography, right? Having up-to-date photography, which is a sin that a lot of comedians commit, is just they hold on to their photos from 20 years ago, 15 years ago, if you're a vet.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you show up at the venue and you're like, oh, somebody's grandpa just showed up.
Who's this guy?
Yeah. So, I think it's crucial to have, at the very least, a good set of photography, headshots, shots that show you interacting with a crowd in different venues,
Like
things
that,
like
like
that.
in the moment shots.
Yeah. And even, even shots with like other comedians, right? Like if I'm a booker and I see that you are, associating with Dave Chappelle or any comedian really, and I can see that on your social media or on your website, then it gives me a lot more confidence that like, oh, this is a comedian who's established, who is in the type of circles that I want into my club.
Man, you say that, and last night I was at the Dallas Comedy Club, and I had the opportunity to take selfies with a bunch of different comedians from the local area here and post those to my social accounts, and I didn't. I'm just in my mind kicking myself.
Well, I mean, if you snapped it, then you still can, right? But
But I forgot to snap it. What's
yeah.
funny is I grew up with a father who took a lot of pictures, and he has a huge collection of photos of us growing up, and it was like having a diary, a visual diary of our youth, and I could be doing that with this comedy stuff, but I haven't. That's a good reminder.
Yeah, I mean, photos is I would say foundational, right? And then kind of the elevated strategy within a visual brand is having a logo, a color scheme that kind of people can associate you with. And that's kind of starts to get a little bit on the elite side, because that positions you as having the opportunity to put that logo on merchandise, putting it on posters, maybe even having it animated, as like an intro. So it starts to get a little bit more advanced in that side. But if you're a comedian and you have a logo, like very rarely do professional comedians have logos. So that's just a great opportunity to stand out and to present yourself as very professional.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I know when I was performing, I had a face that was a silhouette, and then my eyebrows were the Mike Lucas across them. It was real simple, but it was my bald head was the main sort of part of that logo, and I sold them on T-shirts, and I sold quite a few of them, and reported them all to the government, of course.
I'm sure they appreciated that. So yeah, visual strategy. I say the second component is having a website strategy, right? It's just making sure that you have a hub for your visual brand to live on, right? I think it used to be a time when comedians had to walk around with their headshots or a portfolio to kind of give bookers their bio and all that sort of stuff. And now if you can claim a website with your name on it, maybe even have the word comedy next to it, like David Uribe comedy or something like that. Or Mike Lucas comedy, like it gives people an immediate place to go to find out more about you, to find out, where you're touring, where you're performing. If you're, the bookers want to know what's your career looking like right now, right? So having a good website I think is a crucial part of having a comedy brand that helps you stand out.
Has that changed since now it seems like Instagram is people's websites?
Yeah, and that's the next component is social media. But I think, if you focus all your energy purely on social media, you're fighting an uphill battle because everyone is on the same stream trying to gather attention.
Yeah.
So we are very fickle. We have very, short attention span. So even if I come across a clip of a great comedian and it makes me laugh and I like it and maybe comment, the next second I'm moving on to the next person. So the best comedians and the best brands, they know how to leverage, driving people to a central place to basically move them away from that platform and into their own ecosystem. Like every comedian has their own ideal, brand ecosystem where they can keep their fans and engage with their bookers. So having a website is like a really important aspect. I would say it's foundational, having a really thriving comedy career.
Yeah, and the problem with the social media sites as your base is at any given point, they can take it away from you. They can change or they can just go out of business.
Yeah.
There goes all your contacts.
Yep, it happens. I remember when, when TikTok was about to go away, I remember seeing a very prominent, creator crying, 2 days before. I love this community. I'm going to miss it. And like, man, you really squandered your opportunity to bring them into your own world,
right.
Bring them into your own website and a way to, stay in touch with them. So, yeah, website is still crucial, especially now in the digital age.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the next, like I mentioned, the next one is the social media strategy. Now, like you said, like everyone has a social media platform now, and those can come and go. But really the elevated comedian brands know how to leverage social media in a way that, again, engages their fans and their future fans and their future bookers, but also drives them to what ultimately is going to be a place where they can monetize them. So, just a couple of things that come to mind is, when you post a video clip of your comedy, does that clip have captions? Does those captions, the color, do they match your visual brand? Are you consistently using the same style and approach to your content? And at the end of your clip, I mean, some of the best comedians that I've seen that do this, leverage this really well, they end every clip with a specific call to action. It's a branded page, branded graphic at the end. It maybe sits for like 2 or 3 seconds.
Yep.
And they say, hey, find out when I'm coming to your town. Join my mailing list here. So,
and if you have a logo, that's a great place to display
exactly. Yep, that's where your logo sits. That's where, and ideally your website. So this is it all starts to build on top of each other, right? You're leveraging your colors, you're pointing people to your website, and then eventually you're activating your email strategy, which I'm going to go into next. So that's just one, very simple way that comedians can leverage social media. And, there are tools out there now that, you can create like a keyword. So if you end, like a post or even a caption with like, hey, write the word tour to find out when I'm coming to your town. There's tools out there now that you can send an automated DM to your fans, anybody who actually, replies with the word tour, and it'll point them. You can point them right to your website, right? So there's just a lot of clever ways now that you can leverage social media to, again, continue to bring fans into your world as opposed to trying to play in their kind of noisy world.
Okay, so just repeat that real quick. What I heard is basically make an active ask. So the viewer's not just passively scrolling; they actually have to physically do something that's going to hook them better.
Yeah, so you can end any clip that you post, right? Whether it's a video or you just add this to your caption. I mean, a lot of bigger brands, even beyond comedians and performers do this. Well, they'll end a post with saying, hey, if you love this, type the word tour to find out when I'm coming to your town. And so you can, just with that very clear call to action, just one thing for them to do, you're really helping them take a step closer into your world and to be, to stay.
Yeah. Versus slide to the next. Reel, someone else's page. Yeah.
I find that if I see a clip and they actually tell me something to do at the end of it, I'm very likely to do it. I've seen some comedians will say, hey, check out my new special on drybar.com, and type in my name to get, 20% discount. Like, that's a very clear call to action. It's giving me some place to go at the end of the clip. And if I just finish laughing at, a hilarious clip of a comedian and they're telling me where I can find more of their stuff and get it at a special rate, then I'm most likely going to do that. Yeah. And if I consistently see their content is driving me to do something like that, then I'm going to most likely take action on it eventually, even if I didn't do it at that moment.
Is there too much action though? Like, it has to be like a tiny, easy, quick, like it can't be like send me $20 and a picture of your tits. Like, it's got to be.
Well, that's a call to action.
Yeah. Show me. No. That's why like the DM strategy, having a keyword strategy is really a good one because actually these platforms are really jealous, right? They don't really want people to leave their platform. Right. So if you can leverage the tool where, if you just say, DM or reply with the word, tour or whatever, bio or whatever, you can pick out any keyword really. You're really activating. You're actually starting like a DM conversation, even though it's automated. You're actually starting this, kind of an intimate, a more intimate interaction with your fans.
Can you speak to that? The fact that like when I put a link to some other website in like a social media post, I'll get like the algorithm seems to bury it. But if it's a photo with maybe say the website, then it's much more likely to get hits and likes and shares. So teach us about that.
Yeah, I mean, so like I mentioned, like these social media platforms are trying to do everything possible to keep you in the platform. They really would rather you not, click somebody's link in their bio. Even like Instagram, you can't put a hyperlink in your post, not in like a caption. You can put it in a story, like a reel, or no, actually a story where you can add like a button in it. So that's one way to leverage it. So, there are essentially 3 ways to leverage, pointing people to a different place on social media, right? You have your bio, where you can have like an essential like one URL, one website you can point them to. You can do it through a reel where you can add a button. And again, these reels expire after 24 hours. So, it's kind of, if you're going to keep leveraging it, you have to do it daily. Or you can do the DM strategy, which you can create some automations with some other tools like ManyChat to leverage the DM approach.
Man, that's so much to take in when you're just learning how to utilize that. And that's only the fourth of the 5 pillars you're talking about.
Yeah, actually, the next one is email marketing. And then this all starts to build on each other, right? So ultimately, and we mentioned it earlier, if you can move people off of the social platform and eventually onto your site, I like to do this strategy where you only require one thing of them, and you make a very clear incentive for them to give you their email address, and that is find out when I'm coming to your town. Like if you're a comedian that was touring and you have a fan base all over the country, if somebody gives you their email address, you've given them, or if you give them a reason to give you their email address, now they've just given you permission to stay in contact with them in a much more intimate space than social media, right? You're like, your email inbox is like where important things happen, right? It's where like my airplane tickets show up. It's where I send messages to my mom and my friends, and so having an email strategy where you can capture your fans' information, email, you can ultimately build on it. You can put offers in front of your fans. Let's say you wanted to leverage some kind of special meetup, or if you have some special content that is showing up on YouTube, but you want to give them early access to, you're giving them a reason to stay engaged with you because you're offering special, almost like special care just for showing up on your inbox or in your newsletter, essentially. So
Yeah, marketing, they call that a lead magnet.
exactly, right. And in this case, a lot of companies will create lead magnets. They'll do like special cheat sheets or swipe files and things of that nature. In comedy, I think people just want more comedy. They want more ways to stay connected with you. So I think an easy way to do that is incentivize them with either access to special merchandise, or again to your tour, maybe kind of like special content that's not published on Instagram or anywhere else. Like you could say, hey, I have a special 5-minute set that I only have for my subscribers. So if you want to check that out, join my mailing list at my website. So email is going to be a great way for comedians to stay engaged with their fans and bookers, and ultimately put offers in front of them. And if we're going to talk about like if we're going to talk about an elite strategy, you can start to segment the people in your email list on a specific way, right? Like maybe the people who join one email list are just bookers that you're aware of, like maybe venues that you've performed at over the years, and another list is just for fans, right? Or maybe you can start even collecting zip codes of the fans, so that you can start sending messages to fans in Florida if you're coming to Florida, or fans in Texas, or maybe even fans in a very specific city. The more you can capture eventually information of your fan base, it just gives you an opportunity to serve them better by letting them know when you're coming to their town, their specific town. So I'm a big fan of comedians having an email marketing strategy like that.
Yeah, building up an email list is so key. And it's funny that in the old days, you'd have to do that by putting a piece of paper out at everyone's table and have them fill it out by hand. And then you'd have to snail mail all these things. And now they have Kit and MailChimp and all these email marketing software programs that allow you to automate these functions. And it's amazing that more comics don't take advantage of that.
Is there an ideal number of, like, once you have a mailing list, don't you have to give them content, or like I guess there's like too much spam where you get an email every day and I get annoyed, but then there's also probably too little strategy, right? Is there like a Goldilocks zone you'd recommend?
Yeah, I mean, it varies from industry, but like, I'd say the comedians and the performers who have a reason to stay tapped into their audience, like maybe there's a special, maybe they have a brand new special coming up, and so they want to, create awareness to that, or maybe they have some new merch. you don't, like, to your point, you don't necessarily need to bombard people with emails every day, but once a month, twice a month, once every 2 weeks, like you're not, I don't feel spammed if I'm hearing from my favorite performer and they're giving me something, giving me a reason to stay connected with them and to take action, right? You're giving me a reason to like love you even more because you're telling me about special opportunities. Like Matt Ruby is a comedian who has an active newsletter. He has like 3 newsletters. And so he has one that's just focused for comedians. He has others for just comedy enthusiasts. So, depending on how much you want to know about his world, you can just pick and choose his newsletter of choice, right? And you're always able to unsubscribe if you want. So that's kind of the beauty of having an email list, is like, if people get tired of you, they can unsubscribe, no problem. There's plenty of other people out there who want to stay, tapped into what you're up to.
Yeah, the unsubscribing is not necessarily a bad thing. It's somebody who's no longer interested in what you have to offer, so there's no reason to court them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'd say like the last component is just an overall monetization strategy. This is, even beyond getting paid to show up for gigs, and which is a dream, right? You want to be able to show up and get paid by venues and, let's say even potentially like corporate events and that sort of stuff, if that's what you care for. But, you can leverage merchandise like we talk about. Having merchandise, having an online store of some of your merchandise is also a good way to monetize. You can, start up a podcast and get some sponsorships. There's a growing community of comedian hosted podcasts like Theo Von and Joe Rogan. I mean, like those are kind of the most known, but there's a lot of smaller podcasts that, again, that's kind of a way to stay tapped into your audience and to your fans, is by providing a different type of, entertainment value instead of just being on stage and doing, your bits. Like you have more to offer than just your gags and your bits. So
yeah, that's one thing I preach, is the multiple income streams. And you have merchandise, you could teach classes, you can give talks, you can, there's all sorts of other ways to go about creating income out of this skill you have. Exactly.
Yeah. And I mentioned like the newsletters. You can have paid newsletters. Like I've come across lots of paid newsletters where, I want to hear what this person has to say. You can leverage Patreon. Patreon is another great type of revenue source, where if fans want to, support you directly in order to get like special access to content, or special deals, or even just they want to be able to get a shout out in the next video. Like Patreon is a great way for creators and performers and comedians to grow a fan base. And all of a sudden, like if you get enough fans who are just paying you on a monthly basis, like $2, $5, like if you have a big enough fan base, that can turn into a pretty sizable income for you, outside of gigging and and selling merch and all that sort of stuff. So there's just a lot of opportunities there for comedians to make money.
So let's talk a little bit more about the branding itself. Is it flexible over time? Can you morph your branding? Should comedians adjust their brand based on audience feedback, or do you stay consistent with what you originally came up with and sort of fight for that, whatever your logo is?
Yeah. Like there are comedians who stay super active and release specials all the time. Like, we're talking kind of very, kind of high tier comedians, like a Jim Gaffigan, who's basically, coming up with a new special, it feels like every year. And each special has its own kind of visual brand, and that keeps his brand kind of fresh and changing every single time. You can see that translate even to like, his avatars on his social profiles, the banners, all that sort of stuff. So, I think for really active comedians who are putting out content a lot, there's kind of a built-in opportunity to have your brand continue to evolve. Like I almost think of, like she's not a comedian, but Katy Perry, with every new album, she has a different hairstyle, She has a different color scheme, but there's always this kind of foundational, like, we know who she is. We're just kind of experiencing this level, this current version of her. And I mentioned Jim Gaffigan, like
Yeah.
His latest special is called The Skinny, which is like him talking about, being on a appetite suppressant, and now he actually looks thinner, and so his whole comedy is around that. So it continues to evolve. But for a comedian who's not at that level, of putting out specials and has a huge following, like just starting with the foundational brand that essentially sums up the essence of your comedy, I think is a good place to start. And then, I think maybe every 3 to 5 years, there's an opportunity to start, what can we do? We can update some photography if things look different. We can change maybe a couple things here and there. But the essence of having just an established brand as a comedian is so rare that, just setting it up now and revisiting it every couple of years is going to serve you well.
I'm glad you said that, because we really, I teach in the Finding Your Funny Muscle books, I teach that the comedy lens it's great to have one. It's important to have one to start with, but you have to evolve it as your comedy matures, progresses, and you have to continually check in with it to say, is this serving my writing? Is this allowing me to write in an original way so that I can still stay in touch with who I am as a person and as a comedian, but it also is true to that brand. And if it's not anymore, then you need to evolve that, and it's perfectly okay to do that. I'm on my 3rd comedy lens at this point, and 4th if you include Fun Bunch of Guys, which is more of a performance description than a lens. But my point being, it does evolve.
Yeah, it does evolve, and even if the act is primarily, overall, even necessarily if like your style doesn't dramatically change, but your material changes. You evolve. Like comedians enter new phases of their life where they're parents, or now they're empty nesters.
Or you quit drinking or quit doing drugs.
Yeah. So that's going to
married.
naturally give you an opportunity to kind of evolve it, and you have new types of content to share.
I'm the married guy now who doesn't do drugs or alcohol. I'm the sad guy.
Yeah, that's what I love about comedians, is like they're just always analyzing. Like the best comedy is the stuff that you've thought of and never said, right?
Yeah.
It's the stuff like, oh man, I wish I had said that. Like I
Jerk store.
think about that all the time, or that frustrates me to no end. So that's what I love about comedians, is they're just dissecting everything. They're just little surgeons on everything.
Yeah, we really do, and we're so good at seeing connections. That's the thing that our brain does really well, is we see unlikely connections between unlikely worlds, and then we have ways to verbally bring those together in a surprising way, after misdirecting you into thinking we were going to talk about something else. And so it's a fun game that we play, and when you get really good at it, you can use a theme or a brand or a comedy lens to help guide that. And to me, that's what's another, important thing about having a brand or a comedy lens, is it really informs your direction and the flavor of what you're bringing to the public.
Yeah, it's one of those things I really appreciate about your books, is like the idea of like you're setting up a direction ultimately for a misdirection, and then you I love the way you spell that out on like that.
Thanks.
Formula.
Yeah, thanks. That's a real hard thing to get across to people, because you say premise, setup, punchline, and when you say that, it is the truth. It is what we do as comics, but it doesn't reflect all that's going on in that process, in that methodology, and that misdirection is something that every good comedian does that, and when you are unaware of that's happening, it seems magical.
Yeah. I want to give you another shout out, Mike, because like I love the artwork on your books, and like the illustrations on it really help it stand out. And I think that was one of those main reasons that I like started looking into your books, is like it just captured me visually. Is like that, you have the nose with the mustache and the whoopee cushion, and like all those elements that immediately like, oh man, I really got to see what's going on here. And
oh man, thank you. That's funny that branding attracted you, and And here's a quick backstory of how that happened. I had a original cover guy that I did, and he made a cover that was almost like a literal interpretation. Originally I had the idea, I have 3 books that I had in mind, and I wanted to put a really basic comic device on each one, and each one of those devices had to reflect the idea that we misdirect to get people to laugh. So each of those comic devices, the 2 eye or the big nose and glasses, the whoopee cushion, and the flower that squirts.
Squirt water, yeah.
Right? Like each one of those, if you think about it, the whoopee cushion, there's an expectation of the normal, which is you can sit down and you don't fart. And then when that sound comes out, that surprises us. It's the same with we expect people's face to look normal, and when they have a big nose and glasses on with a mustache, we're the misdirection is lost, and we're surprised. And it's the same with when someone shows you a flower on their shirt, you don't expect to get wet, and so that misdirection to a normal flower encounter is part of that comedy. And so those 3 things reflected to me what I was trying to teach in general, thematically, with this methodology. So I had this guy literally do a whoopee cushion on the front of the cover, and a lot of people were telling me it looks homemade. Your cover looks homemade. And one of the big things, as you know, about branding is you can't have something that looks cheap or homemade. It has to look professionally done, and it has to be enticing. So I found through another connection, I found a cover guy out of the Philippines, and this guy is brilliant, and he's the one that's done my covers so far, and he figured out how to make these the idea that I had into his own creation with these sort of they're not really cartoons, but they're sort of exaggerated illustrations. Exactly. So yeah, so thank you for saying that. I'll pass that compliment on to him. His name is June Aries.
Yeah.
But Mike, but to David's point earlier, did you ever think about, like, when you do Instagram reels, to match the caption lettering and the coloring and even the text font to that same goofy, Mike Lucas Funny Muscle font?
I do now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of effort, like doing that stuff. There's a lot of cutting and pasting and a lot of scissoring that you have to do to get it just right. And I'd never occurred to me to do it. And I know that probably the reason why is because it's a lot of extra effort for every social media post, for every email you send out. But to David's, point, it's important. It differentiates you. It makes you original. It sets you apart, especially in the world of comedy where not a lot of people are doing this yet.
Yeah. I think so. My latest client was Bob Smiley, he's been doing comedy for like 27 years. He's a clean comedian. He primarily serves audiences in churches. And so we wanted to make sure that that was really clear up front. So when we developed his brand and kind of brand colors, I also provided him with templates that he can use on his social media, right? So there's a tall one for reels, there's a square one for posts, there's kind of a semi-tall one for regular carousels and stuff like that. And so now he's equipped that every post already has the logo up top. All he has to do is just type the content or paste the video in the in the middle of that and export it.
It's already.
And now his feed is starting to grow and have this very consistent color scheme. His logo is always present. So there are ways that you can do it without if you set it up really well, if you work with a designer to help you set up the main templates, then the work is way more reduced. It's much easier to paste a video clip onto an existing template and then export it and then upload it.
You mean instead of building each one individually like I was doing?
From scratch every single time.
Yeah. Right. Wow, this takes a long time.
Yeah. Right. And that's a strategy that big businesses have been doing for a long time, and really established brands now with tools like Canva and things like that. You can every comedian is a small business owner essentially, right? And you have access to those types of tools. So that's what I'm trying to help comedians get to, is get to this next level of professionalism with an established brand.
Well, now your services, a lot of the newer comedians aren't going to be able to afford to hire a brand manager right off the bat, which obviously when you begin to get more serious about your career and you really are beginning to look at how important branding is. Someone like you is key. But what can someone who's just beginning do for themselves? Obviously, those five pillars you mentioned, we can do our own version of each one of those. But is there any kind of advice, branding advice you could give us that we can begin to do that would be like sort of baby steps on our way to getting a guy like you on our side?
Yeah, so those five pillars, I basically I wrapped them up, in like a free video training resource called on comedybranding.com. So it's gonna actually guide people on what they need. Like if they have the know-how of how to use these tools, then they can leverage it on their own, right? But if they are at this level where like, hey, I'm so busy, I've got gigs after gigs after gigs, I just need a professional, then like that's what people like me are here to do, is help them and help them launch it. So yeah, I wanted your listeners to know that that I've created a resource for them, so that they can know these these pillars and really start trying to tackle it one by one, right? Like again, they build on each other. So at the base level, if like we talked about a visual brand as the starting point, is like just get some good photography, pick a color scheme that you want to stick with and start using that everywhere. Like you don't need to spend money,
Really?
lots of money to do that. Maybe hire a photographer, maybe just have somebody take a photo of you with their iPhone, but like find a photo or a set of photos that really represent you, and then now start building on top of that. Like start putting it on a website, start using that on social media, like start figuring out how to email your audience. Like it builds on each other, and it's totally accessible for anybody. Like the tools are there now.
That's great. And thanks for providing that to our listeners. We love free stuff, and it's helpful to have a guide like that, a template to begin to check, do like a checklist of what I got to take care of.
Yeah, I've even included the essential structure of a comedy website, like a comedian website, and it's based off of the one that I built for Bob Smiley. So if they can access tools to build the site, like they can literally copy that template and just do it for themselves.
Yeah, and it's so important to have it, even if it's simple. I mean, meaning the design is simple. It doesn't matter because it's just a place. It's a landing zone.
You know what? I'll say this: simple is better than complex.
Yes.
Like that is the sin that a lot of like established comedians make, is like they dump all this stuff on their website, and it's like you can't figure it out. Like you're overwhelmed, and when people are overwhelmed, they leave.
Yeah.
If you confuse, you lose. So like the simpler you can make it, and again, if you look at Bob Smiley's website, like it's not complex. It's just consistent. Like there's a lot of negative space. It helps people, read what they're looking at. I don't think it overwhelms. So simple is actually good,
It's key because people don't have a lot of time, and everyone's swiping left.
Swiping left, up, down, all around, it's like
There's a lot of swiping going on, David.
yeah. We need to put a stop to that right now.
Right, for sure. Well, it's funny. I'm about to release a lead magnet myself. It's called The Business of Comedy: 21 Things Every Comic Should Know About the Business of Stand-Up Comedy. And a lot of what you've covered in here reflects what I've covered in this lead magnet, which are the importance of addressing the business side of comedy. Being funny is so important. It's just like it's the number one job of the comedian, but the number two job of the comedian is the job of the comedian. And a lot of my friends that I knew in the business were hilarious, but they had no business sense. I'd gone to business school, so I knew what to do to run the business of being a stand-up. And what you're talking about across your stuff, David, is really reflective of what I'm trying to teach as well. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I'm glad there's some overlap there.
For sure. And was there anything you want to pitch before we take off?
Yeah, I think a great place for people to get started and learn more about what I can do and how I can help is just going to comedybranding.com. It's a free resource. From there they'll learn about how maybe I can help them if they're ready for that. But yeah, my agency is called UribeCreative.com. But yeah, comedybranding.com is a great place for people to get started.
And is there something that we're going to be asked to give our email address for so that we can
There
exchange
is, I already did.
of value?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
is there? Yeah.
You just put your first name and your email, and then you'll get like a 5-day video series training on
Love it.
how to leverage your brand.
Man, that's really smart, David. I love how you did that. And that's cool. And I love it's the heroin approach to sales, which is I'll give you a taste, baby, and then you'll be back for more. You'll be back for more.
Yeah, the beauty is like truly, if they find value in it and they find value in the types of stuff that I'm teaching and showing, then maybe when the time is right, they will want to work with me directly. And if not, then hopefully they're learning enough on their own, through my content that they can, take their comedy career to the next level on their own. And so much of like comedy is DIY, right? It is like
Yeah.
it's just you with a microphone and you're kind of writing your sets and you're testing stuff out. And so I can really respect that approach. I don't look down on it at all. But there's just some people who are ready for the next level, and that's what I'm here to, to help them do. If they want to work closely with me, I can do that. If not, then, my goal is to bring more humor through business. And so, that if they want to stay tapped into that and get value out of my emails and my content, then that's what I'm here for.
It's great. There's so much value in this podcast episode alone. So thank you for that. And thank you for your time, my man.
Should we
No,
ask him
my
the,
pleasure.
the question we ask everybody?
Oh, yeah, this is a question we ask comedians, but you said that you've done comedy and improv, so
Yeah,
I think that you could
fair.
really answer this. We compile a list of the answers in a periodic podcast where we have like 10 answers at once. But anyway, Chris, go ahead and ask the question.
Yeah, so the question is, if you have an hour a day to work on your comedy, that is not on stage, but actually writing jokes and writing your material, what kind of drills, exercises, writing techniques, improv exercises would you give, a first year comic if they have an hour a day, they want to work on material? What's the equivalent of doing 100 push-ups, but for your comedy chest?
Yeah. So something I do on a daily basis, it doesn't matter the hour, but it is in the morning. I wake up nice and early, and I set a timer on my phone, either for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 30 minutes. And I use Notion for like just brain dumping, and I literally just start writing. I treat it like a journal, and every now and then I give myself a little list within that. I'll say 10 things that I hate, or 10 things that annoy me, or 10 things that that I'm passionate about, and I just start listing them, and that kind of starts to fuel some of
Wow.
the comedy. Like, why do I love that, or why do I hate that? Like, there's something there that we can tap into and turn into a bit. So yeah, setting a timer, just free flow writing, treat it like a journal, and kind of give yourself a little parameter of like, what are 10 things that frustrate me, excite me, infuriate me, like something like that. That's kind of my version of it.
That's great. It reminds
Nice.
me of Natalie Goldberg's morning pages. I think she's the one that does the morning pages, and it's that free flow state of writing that really gets your brain loose. Cool. Good answer.
Yeah, nice,
Thank you.
good answer. Yeah.
Good answer. Good answer. Beautiful. Good job, man.
Thanks. That was fun. I hope it's helpful.
It is, and it's funny how it reflects a lot of what I already teach. So it's nice when people can hear from different sources similar information so that it reinforces what they're already learning.
But thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All
I
right,
can't
you
wait
too,
to hear
David.
it.
Yeah, I'll send you a link as soon as I get it.
All right. See
Peace
ya.
out.
So yeah.
Peace out. There it is. All right, that turned out good. I liked what he had to say, man. But it's because I agreed with all of it. I
Yeah.
feel like what he felt was important, I felt was important, and it reflected. I swear, it was like you read my book. The workbook. The business of comedy workbook. It was a lot of those same general concepts he was going through.
Yeah, and there were some good takeaways for like the one I took away was just change the text on your caption on your Instagram reel and
Yeah,
then consistently keep that same text because everyone just goes to the default and never thinks about that. But like if you have that unique brand on your writing, like I think I was thinking about like my econ book, like I should take the same text from that. But that like that branding of my book is like the black and yellow and then that
but it's
like
those cartoons as your branding.
just in general, the idea of everyone keeps scrolling, so if you can make an actionable, like non-passive ask, it kind of like probably stops the
Well,
scrolling
yeah,
on to
that's
the
a
next.
CTA. They call it a CTA, a call to action, and
Yeah.
that's a standard marketing tool, which you never do anything without leaving a CTA.
But I don't see a lot of CTAs on just regular comics reels. Like, these are just, local
No,
comedians. No.
that's the whole point. Is he's saying that we're not doing these things.
Yeah.
We don't realize that they need to be done. So that's the great thing about having a episode like this. It's a sort of a wake up call to what's possible. All right, brother. Thank you. That was good.
So yeah.
See you.